Chapter 13, 24, Fang Yuan's Two Trump Cards. Translator, Atlas Studios. Editor, Atlas Studios. Although Tu Shicheng was the father of this boy that Fang Yuan was disguised as, he was completely unreliable. What did he mean by rely on feelings? Innate talents could not be embodied like this. If the construction of the goo formation failed, in a minor case the goo worms would be injured or destroyed, and in a severe case the goo master themselves would suffer the backlash. If one could create a goo formation just by relying on feelings, formation path goo immortals would not be so rare in the present 5 regions. Arranging a goo formation was a precise and rigorous task, like deducing immortal goo recipes. They both were similar, requiring a process, detailed consideration, and continuous tests. However, since the dream realm was like this, Fang Yuan calmed his mind and continued to ponder how he should tackle this situation where it seemed he truly had to do it in the way Tu Shicheng said. Fang Yuan asked, "Do I need to use all the 4 goo worms?" "Of course not, but you need to at least select 2 to set up a goo formation." Tu Shicheng replied, "I simply don't know about this earth path goo worm, so it will be better to give it up." Fang Yuan continued to think. As such, he had 3 choices in front of him. Hurry up, don't think too much, rely on your feelings. Just as Fang Yuan had spent slightly longer in thinking, Tu Shicheng's expression sank a little, urging, "I will give you 3 breaths of time." 3 breaths of time. And there was only one chance. Wasn't he purposely making it difficult? A thought flashed past Fang Yuan's mind. Do I need to use Unravel Dream? His current accumulation was already different from the past. Last time, when he explored the giant dream realm, he had limited quantities of dream path mortal goo, which led to a limited number of times that Unravel Dream could be used. Fang Yuan had to be very efficient when using it. But it was different now. Fang Yuan had enough confidence. Because he had captured many nightmare demonic cults, using these natural dream path immortal materials along with his persistent refinement, he now possessed very many dream path mortal goo. Thus, the number of times he could use Unravel Dream was at a peak now. Precisely because of this, Fang Yuan had an unprecedented amount of confidence. Forget it. This is only the first layer of the dream realm. Even if it fails, I can continue to explore. Although I can use Unravel Dream much more now, I cannot waste it like this. Fang Yuan thought for a moment and gave up on using Unravel Dream. He began to activate the goo worms. First was Formation Heart Goo. This yellow ladybug was already refined by him. His primeval essence was consumed. It immediately hovered and stopped in front of Fang Yuan, shining with pale yellow light. Fire path, water path, wind path. Fang Yuan mumbled, since he had given up on the earth path goo worm. Then he only had these 3 choices remaining. He chose the rank 1 water path goo worm. The reason for this choice was simple. His fire path and wind path attainment levels were ordinary, but in water path he was a grandmaster. Grandmaster attainment was not for show. The water path goo worm was successfully activated. It was bathed in the yellow light and revolved around the formation heart goo, flying up and down. Fire path and wind path. Fang Yuan chose wind path. The wind path goo worm also mixed in, and like the water path goo worm, it flew around the formation heart goo. It was just that the wind path goo worm was in the periphery, while the water path goo worm was nearer to the formation heart goo. Fang Yuan waited for a bit. Among these 3 goo worms, one was hovering in the air while the other 2 were continuously flying around. They were all activated but were still extremely stable. Although they have not formed a true goo formation, this progress is quite good. Fang Yuan was slightly pleased. To use an analogy, arranging a goo formation was like building blocks. Each goo worm was a strangely shaped building block. The goo master needed to arrange these building blocks into the shape they wanted. These scattered building blocks would form high towers, buildings, and other shapes, creating an effect that far surpassed the individual building block. Although Fang Yuan had not successfully arranged these building blocks into a shape, these 3 goo worms were at least mutually compatible and did not collapse. This was quite good progress. However, a trace of gloominess and disappointment flashed past Tu Shicheng's eyes. Fang Yan, who was focused on setting up the goo formation, did not notice it. Now, I need to adjust it. Does the formation heart goo need to stay in the center? Can the positions of the water path and wind path goo be swapped? Water path inside and wind path outside. Can I adjust it to water path outside and wind path inside? Or maybe the water path goo and the wind path goo can be together. Should I let the wind path goo revolve around the water path goo instead of the formation heart goo? As Fang Yuan pondered, all kinds of plans emerged in his mind. He did not know what results these plans could give, or what effects would they have. His formation path attainment was truly too lacking. Rely on your feelings. Stop hesitating, Tu Shicheng urged, looking somewhat impatient. Fang Yuan gritted his teeth. Actually, he didn't need Tu Shicheng's urging. He also knew he had to take action. If nothing else, his primeval essence was about to dry up. In the dream realm, he had just become a goo master. Although he had a grade aptitude, he was activating 3 goo worms at the same time, which intensely burdened on his primeval essence. He already did not have much time to think. Let's give it a try then. Fang Yuan inwardly gritted his teeth as he activated the fire path goo worm as well, putting it inside the newly created structure. He made no changes to the previous foundation, because he did not know what use making changes would have, and also did not know if there was a need to make changes. He was a pure beginner with no feeling for the right action. The attempt was done blindly. But my luck is good. Maybe I can succeed by chance? Fang Yuan still had some hope. But soon his hope was ruined. The moment the fire path goo worm was added in, it immediately led to a chain reaction. The fire path goo's strength joined with the wind path goo, immediately increasing the power. This immediately conflicted with the water path goo that was inside. Water and fire were opposing forces, immediately creating an explosion. A soft explosion echoed. It was not intense, but it still exploded, covering Fang Yuan's face with black soot. His hair stood up on end. White smoke was rising. At the same time the formation heart goo was directly destroyed, the other 3 goo worms were also injured to various degrees. The water path and fire path goo worms were on the verge of death, while the wind path goo worm was also heavily injured. You have failed. Tu Shicheng's expression changed. He said with a cold tone, You truly disappoint me. Go. Fang Yuan's vision changed as he was expelled out of the dream realm. The first exploration had failed. His soul returned to his body slightly shook, his healthy complexion suddenly paled. Fang Yuan immediately inspected his injuries and found that the injury to his soul was much more severe than he expected. But it did not matter. Guts goo. Fang Yuan took out a guts goo and crushed it. The injuries of his soul were immediately relieved greatly. Fang Yuan used another guts goo, and immediately his soul injuries were completely healed. The slight sense of vertigo had disappeared at once. Because he had guts goo, Fang Yuan was not afraid of failing in his dream realm exploration and his soul being injured. Right now, I should be the first person to explore the dream realm. Even Shadow Sect's remnant forces won't be able to catch up to me, Fang Yuan calculated. This was because he had 2 great trump cards to explore dream realms. First was Guts Goo. It could heal soul injuries. Second was Unravel Dream. Once used, it would get one straight to solving the problem. Its usefulness was somewhat unreasonable. Guts Goo came from Donghun Mountain. Fang Yuan had placed Donghun Mountain in Langya Blessed Land, and was even cooperating with Langya Sect in trading Guts Goo. They had a monopoly on Guts Goo business. They were the only ones producing it, and its demand was always higher than its supply. Recently, Fang Yuan had not been selling his portion of the Guts Goo for profit. Instead, he was accumulating them. He had a single objective, to be fully prepared in exploring the dream realm. Thus, he had large numbers of Guts Goo with him. Because of this, he was short on money and had no choice but to expand the scale of some of his resources to improve his finances. The first failure did not matter. With Guts Goo, Fang Yuan's soul immediately recovered and could go for a second exploration. But he was not hurried, instead using connecting heaven goo to let his divine sense enter treasure yellow heaven. He began to gather information. First was that earth path mortal goo. Fang Yuan did not recognize it, so he needed to understand it. Fang Yuan soon bought a set of from an earth path goo immortal. This was an information transaction and was among the businesses in treasure yellow heaven. There were transactions of methods to target against goo worms. There were introductions and understandings of goo paths. There was news of the present political situation. There were also deductions of time path and wisdom path, goo immortals, on the past, present, and future. Fang Yuan naturally could rely on his 500 years of experiences to sell information that could definitely attract people. But this kind of information was normally very cheap, and not long after selling them, Fang Yuan's rebirth advantage would weaken, so Fang Yuan had never even considered it. Fang Yuan was not satisfied with just this goo immortal's work, and bought some relevant information, naturally including some mortal formation path inheritances. These cost him close to 10 immortal essence stones. To Fang Yuan, this was just peanuts. He soon learned of that earth path mortal goo from the information he bought. This was a goo worm that appeared in the early stages of the late antiquity era. It was soon extinct because the goo materials required to refine it had been wiped out. The information recorded briefly introduced this earth path goo worm's ability. Fang Yuan even obtained the recipe of this earth path mortal goo from another information source.